Okay. So when you're ready for me to start, you let me know.
Okay. Well, I don't want to wait too much longer, actually. Let's go ahead and begin. So take it away, Sylvia.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here today. Today's focus is going to be on our JSON Line. So we're just going to be picking up sort of from where Michael started yesterday, okay? So I have a few slides that I'm going to quickly go through. I know I have up to about an hour to do like a short demo of our JSON Line and story map. So there might be things on the slide that I'm not going to even mention, and I'm going to try as best as I can to touch on the high points in the demos that I'm going to be doing. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen. Hold on. Share screen. Can you see my PowerPoint slides? I don't know. You can, okay.
Yes.
Okay, let's see, present. Okay, so I'm supposed to be talking about like just web services, web maps, and web apps. Okay, so very briefly, what are web services? So they're like just resources, like the maps or the images that we have that enable us to access and share the resources that we have on our JSON Line. Sometimes they're used interchangeably. Sometimes people refer to them as layers of map, but they're not actually the layers of the map. They're like the environment that allows us to push the layers forward to people, okay? So they represent different types of content like maps, scenes, geoprocessing tools, etc. Oh, by the way, I kind of speak very fast. So if I'm going too fast, just let me know, okay? And they can be used in web browser or custom maps. And the most common web services are like map services. So when they're published, they give us access to the contents of a map, like the layers or the attributes, okay? Web layers are published as services in the cloud environment, okay? And there are different types of layer that are published from different types of web services. So for example, a feature layer is corresponding service is a feature service. A tile layer is published to the map service, okay? And we know that spatial data are stored in layers, okay? And you can configure, and the settings that you configure can be stored in the layers. So you can configure things like the symbology, the pop-ups, etc. They can be stored in the layers themselves. And they're easily shared and used, and so that anyone who has access to those layers can easily use them. And we can add them to like maps, scenes, or even in apps themselves. One thing I think Michael mentioned yesterday was when you share a feature layer, you want to make sure that you share the layer and the map image to the same users. So if you're sharing the feature layer or the map image layer, you're sharing them to groups, you want to make sure the same group has access to everything. Otherwise, some things won't be able to be displayed, okay? So web maps, what are they? They're all interactive and they can be opened in standard web browsers or mobile devices or even desktop viewers. They contain the base maps with a set of data layers and they have the interactive pop-ups, okay? You can use web maps to create apps. And again, you can share them through links or you can embed them in websites. One of the common reasons why they're shared publicly is so that those without license to like our JSON Line, for example, can actually just easily see them, okay? And then these are like different ways that you can share them. You need to have an account with a privilege to create. And if you're creating maps with layers, you need to have privileges to be able to publish the web layers. Generally, for those people without internet access, you can normally like publish the data as a web layer or you can create a story, or you can embed them in websites. And again, I think I mentioned it just earlier, you can share the maps with groups. You can share them to the in your organization. I can share them to the public via links. Once those web maps are shared, others can reuse them, or they can edit them as well. Okay, so what are web apps then? These are generally like maps that are shared. Oops, let me go back. They're maps that are shared through apps. They're like simplified, they have like simplified interface to share a story or a message in a much more focused way. For example, Survey 123 or story maps, okay? Some of them work on web browsers, some work on mobile devices, some work on desktop, some work on all of them, all of these different types of environments. And they can be used in the field. For example, I don't know, like Survey 123, you can take them out in the field to use them, okay? And they can be hosted as part of a portal, or they can be managed independently. So they can be shared in a JSON Line to be used in a web map, or you can share it to an organization to be used as a web layer. And they're generally used across all ArcGIS platforms, and they're made available to a very wide audience. Okay, I'm just going through this very quickly. So to create web apps, you're going to pick the type of app you want to create. You're going to build it, then you want to assemble all the contents for the app. Then you're going to choose the type of app you want to use, whether it's story map or it's Survey 123. Then you're going to edit them, and then you can publish them via links to other people. Okay. Generally, depending on your comfort level, where people are normally encouraged to use like the most simple default settings, or if you're very advanced in using them, then you can go ahead and use the most fuller set of options. Okay. Now, I mentioned that now there's the new map viewer. A lot of us are used to using the old map viewer, which has now become Map Viewer Classic. Since it just came out not too long ago, these are some of the differences that I have observed, and I'm gonna, if I have time, show some of these. With the map viewer, you cannot really take map notes like you would do in the Map Viewer Classic. You can't really add a layer from a file. I have not been able to like copy layers like you would do in a general, in the old Map Viewer Classic. And you can't really perform analysis. I was in an ESRI conference last week, and the ESRI staff was saying some of these changes are going to be coming in the new iteration of Map Viewer. Okay, that was very, very quick. Okay, and then what are story maps? These are web apps that combine interactive maps. They have media, they have scenes. Okay. And they are responsive apps, meaning they work on like a variety of devices. They're hosted in the cloud, okay? And with them, you can use simple map maker to enhance your story, okay? The way you build story, it uses a very simple, flexible story builder. You can mix and match different types of templates in story maps, okay? Multiple people can work on a story. And in story maps as well, you can create express maps, which can only be used in a single story. The data that you use in an express map can't be exported. And like all other maps, they can be shared. Okay, and again, we're going to go into a demo later on. And this is what I'm hoping to do in our JSON Line. We're going to demo how to create or add a layer. We're going to configure pop-ups. We're going to work with Symbology. We're going to try to filter some layers, okay? And with story maps, of course, we're going to start a new story. We're going to try to add some narrative, add some media. We're going to create an express map. And we want to work with the design a little bit to enable navigation, and then we're going to publish it. That was very quick, very simple. It's there, it's all in the folder, okay? So now let me stop sharing this. Let me try a new share. I'm gonna go into ArcGIS Online right now. By the way, did I hear some people yesterday say they only have access to the free JSON Line? Not everyone has an institutional account.
I'm getting a full access. I'm still working through it. I hoped later today to get full access to my institutional account.
Okay, so some of the things that I'm going to be showing, if you don't have, if you're not signed in, well, I guess you'll be able to do it. But anyway, let's see. Let me go back and go to my, hold on. Let me get out of this one. Let me stop sharing for a minute. Okay. Escape. And let me go to, we're going to go into our JSON line. Okay. I want this to be kind of, we're all going to try to work on this together. Okay. So if you have a, oh, Michael, do you want me to just demo this?
Up to you, Sylvia. Whatever you think would be best.
Okay, let's all try. It's pretty simple. Let's all try to get into our JSON line. You all have your accounts. We're gonna go in and I'm using I'm using ArcGIS, the Map Viewer Classic. In a few minutes, I'm gonna try to show you what it looks like in the new Map Viewer. But for now, I'm gonna open up when you get into your account, okay, click on map. Let me go first to my homepage. This is what my homepage looks like. It's gonna be different for everyone.
I'm
Yes.
not seeing, I'm just seeing us. I'm not seeing your screen
Oh,
anymore.
you not see my screen? Oops.
Not right now.
Hold on. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I just logged into our JSON Line. This is what our homepage looks like. Yours is going to be very different. Okay. So I'm going to go to map. Okay. And like I said, this is the Map Viewer Classic, the old one, okay, which is what most of us have been used to doing. For a minute, if you click on open a new Map Viewer, there's not going to be anything there, but this is what the new Map Viewer looks like. It's a little different, okay? So I don't know if you can see the ribbons now on the side, on the left and right side, which is very different from what it looks like in Map Viewer Classic. But what I'm going to be demoing is going to be in the Map Viewer Classic. So go ahead and click on open in Map Viewer Classic. Go back and click on that link at the top. And right here in the search box, we're going to type in Texas. Texas, USA. Are there people, I'm thinking there are people who are not too familiar with using our JSON Line. I'm going to quickly point out to some of the icons at the top. The add icon is what you use to add layers to your map, okay? The base map is what you use to change the base map. We all know that every map has a base map, okay? You can switch around, you can change the base map, but you cannot really do anything else to the base map. I'm going to point that out. This is what you use to do if you're doing analysis, like creating buffer, or you're finding drive time or whatever. This is what you'd use to do that. This is the button, of course, you use to save. You want to share your map when you're done. This is what you use. If you want to print, that's what you use. And the measure, I mean, if you want to measure an area, you want to measure distance, that's the icon there that you would use. And bookmarks, of course, we all know what bookmarks do. Okay. So for now, we're going to go in and we typed in, hold on, at Texas. Okay. We're going to, on the left side of your screen, at the top right there, you see it's add. First of all, we're going to click on the down arrow right there. Click on search for layers. I want to show you yesterday, Michael, we all asked us to add contents to our items to our content, to our accounts. Okay, click on search for layers. And if you have my content there, okay, scroll down and find the company map that you added yesterday. I just want us to see that you can add that. When you find it, which is mine, this it's right here, you click on the plus sign, you add in that layer to your map. Does everyone have that? Yes. So that's a very simple way of adding, when you add in a layer to your map. If you have something that you have already brought in, it's in your account, you can easily go in and add it to the map, okay? On the other hand, if you have added, let's say you have a file, you have your data, let's say you collected your own data. It's in a file somewhere, you have it on a spreadsheet. You can also go in and click on add. This time, you want to click for add layer from file. Let me see, I had a, hold on. Let me see, I have a file there that I want you guys to go in. Hold on, let me find. In the Google Drive for today's resources, there's a link to, I have an Excel spreadsheet, okay, which has information on higher institutions in Texas, okay. I'm gonna go into it. If you have the time, go in there, download that file to your desktop, save it as a CSV file, and we're gonna add it into the map. Do I have to demo that? Do you understand what I'm saying? No, okay. Let me see if let me move this for a minute. If you go into day 2 activity, okay, let's see. I'm trying to find a JSON line. If you go into the curriculum materials for today, day 2, there's a link to, there's a file that says institutions of higher education. Let me didn't share. Can you see that? Institutions of higher education? Institutions, okay. Download it, save it to your desktop, save it as a CSV file. Okay. Once you're done with that, I'm gonna go back to my map. Okay. I'm gonna bring in that data, okay? Let's say this is something you found yourself, you wanna visualize, you wanna work with in JSON Line, okay? So you have the data, rather than going into, okay, my content, I'm gonna click on the down arrow, click on add layer from file, okay? You're gonna choose file, go to where you save that file, okay? And click on it and open it and import layer. And here we're gonna click on add layer. Okay, so something was not added, but that's fine. Okay, do you all have the layer added to your map? Yes or no? Do you all have the layer added? Obviously working, okay, good. Some of you do. Because I have such a short time, I'm just gonna keep going, okay? But then now you have a list of all these institutions there with different colors showing that all different. We're gonna go from here. I'm gonna go to where it says location, single symbol, click on select. Rather than all of them having different colors, we're gonna go in and choose one color for all of them. And you click on done. It's not a very pretty picture, but now we have on the map all the different institutions in Texas all loaded to the map. Do you have that? Yeah? Okay, all right. So I just wanted to show you, this is not what we're gonna actually be working with, but I wanted to show you that you can add a layer from something that you already have in your my content, or you can add a layer from a file that you just, let's say you created your own data on something that's in a CSV file that's on your desktop or on your flash drive. You can add it to to your map. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and go back to like add again. We're gonna search for another layer this time, okay? Click on add, click on search for layers. This time, instead of my content, click on ArcGIS Online. A lot of people create different layers and they save them to ArcGIS Online, okay? You can search for layers. If your group had, different people in your group had created layers, you could search for layers from your group. You can search for layers if you're organized for your organization, let's say different people at SMU had created different layers. You can search to see who has created a layer, if there's a layer that you want to search for, or you can search the Living Atlas, which is another session that we can have, or you can search ArcGIS Online, which is what we're going to search. Click on ArcGIS Online, and this time search for Texas major drainage. Oops. Texas major drainage basins. Let's click on search. Okay, do you have two layers in your results? We're going to add this to, click on the plus sign, we're going to add this to our map. Okay. And then we want to click on, want to search for another layer called Texas State Parks. Texas State Parks. Okay. Find the one that says TPWD State Parks. These are all the different layers. For you to know what the layer is about, to read to find out some more information about what the layer is about, you can click on the title to see the item details. It gives you some more information about the park, like all the metadata, the description, all of those things. If it's something you want to use, you can add it to your map, okay? If it's not something you want to use, you can just close it out and find another layer. But do you all have the Texas State Parks by TPWD? Okay, right. And then when you're done, click on the back arrow. Okay, right here we're on the contents menu. You have a listing of all of the layers that we have added to our map. Okay, go ahead and uncheck the institutions of higher education in Texas because we're not going to work with that. I just wanted to, we just added it so that you can see how you can add a layer from a file. You're going to uncheck that. Okay, and then let's see, Texas. Oops, let me see. Let me see if this is, I think I got the wrong. Hold on, let me go back and add. I think I got the wrong layer. I'm gonna go back and search for layers. I got the wrong layer. I don't want Texas State Parks. I want the Texas State Parks that has, let me see what it says. Headquarters. Okay. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong layer. This was the one I wanted. Texas State Parks, headquarters and access points. Okay. I'm going to add this to my map. Are you guys lost? Am I going too fast? Are you okay?
I'm okay. There are two Texas State Parks headquarters and access points, but one is from 2020.
Find the one that says TPW
Okay.
State Parks. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. When you've added it, you want to go back now, go back to the contents menu. And this time, the one that says Texas State Parks Trail, the ones that I mistakenly added, I'm going to remove it. So click on the three dots there and click on remove. I don't want to use it. Say yes, remove layer. Okay. So right now you should have the Texas State Parks layers, the Texas major drainage basins, the county map there. Okay. You can check and uncheck a layer for you to see what information it has. Okay. And then beneath the name of each layer, you have all these different icons that give you different information. The first one is the if you want to show the legend. Then the other one is the attribute table. Okay, so all the data that you have on the map is shown in the attribute table. Okay, so for example, if we click on this table under Texas State Parks, you look at the attribute table, it gives you all the information that you have from that data, okay? The name, the type, comments, whatever. Okay. So all the information that you have in the data is right there in the attribute table, okay? I'm gonna go back and close it off, okay? All right. Now, again, if you look at all of the features on the map, click on any one of them, you have the pop-ups, okay? And what the pop-ups do is they give us more information about the different features on a map. Okay. For example, this one gives you the location code, the name, the type, the comments, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes all this is useful, but sometimes as well, it's kind of a little too much, okay? So if you want to go in and you want to try to, let's say, configure the information you have on the pop-ups. Okay, let me close this one out. Click on the 3 dots that you have right there. Okay, and scroll down and click on configure pop-up. There are things that I'm supposed to be showing, but I'm just trying to like go through some of the things that I think are very important. Okay, so this gives you the screen where if you want to go in and just choose just the pop-ups that you want, okay, this is the place for you to do it. So click on configure attributes if you want to do that, and click on, I'm going to click on display to display everything. And then I'm going to go in and just choose the ones I want. Let's say we only want the name. We want the name, we want the phone number. Let's see, phone. We want the street, we want the city. We want the zip code, we want the county. And click on OK. And then here, click on OK again. Okay. So right now, if you go in and click on any of the pop-ups, you see that you have a much shorter list of field names on the pop-ups itself. Okay. So rather than having like those 15 different fields, we went in and we selected that we only wanted these 6 different fields to make the pop-up look a little bit cleaner. Okay. Any question about what I just did? Anybody needs me to go over that again? No? Okay. So now let's do another thing. Let's try to filter some of the information that we have right here. Okay. So if you go back to the Texas State Parks headquarters and access points, click on the 3 dots again. This time, click on copy. I must say this, that people do, there are different ways to come to do the same things that I'm doing. Okay. Yeah. So click on copy. We're going to copy that same layer. Click on copy. Okay. And then you have a copy of that layer. This is the layer we're going to filter. Let's say we only want the Texas State Parks that are in Denton County, for example. Okay. So go ahead and click on this icon that says filter. Okay. And here you have the different fields. We're going to go in and say we want, what we're trying to want to do is we want only the state parks that are in Denton County. Okay. So you're going to go in and say county is Denton. So you're creating an expression where you're telling the system that you only want to find the state parks that are in Denton County. Okay, does that make sense? And then you apply filter. Okay. And then if you go in and uncheck the original file, not the layer, not the one that says copy, go in and uncheck that, you'll find out that now you only have this one. So if you click on this, it's only the Texas state parks that are in Denton County that you're seeing. Okay. So now we can rename this layer if we want. Click on, go back and do rename. And let's just do state parks in Denton County. Texas state parks in Okay. So that's very simple. Okay, we could do more, but we don't have time to do more. Okay. Oh, let's change the base map for 1 minute. Okay, like I said, every map has a base map. You can choose any kind of base map that you want. Something that would make your feature or your map stand out very well. I'm gonna go ahead and change to light gray canvas. Okay, so the base map is very different. You can choose any base map that you want. Go ahead and like play around and choose imagery hybrid or whatever. Okay, I'm gonna choose light gray canvas. Okay. Okay, and then let's try to save this map. So click on save and click on save as. Give your title, give your map, what are we gonna call this? States, what? State parks in, that's it. In Denton County. And for tags, do what? Texas state parks. Okay. And then you can give or you can describe your map, whatever. And then when you save it, it's going to save to your content. It's going to save in your folder. Okay. And then let me just say state parks. All right. Save. Okay. Later on, if you want, if you go back to home and you click on content, you'll see that this has been saved to your content, to your account. Okay. So this is very, very quickly, very, very fast. I know. Okay. We've just created a web map. Okay. Again, if you go ahead and click on the feature itself there, you have the pop-up there that we just configured. Okay, you can go in and you can change the symbology if you want, but I'm not sure we have time for all of that. Okay, you can change the color. Okay, let's say I wanted to change the symbology. I click on options, click on symbols, and I'm going to choose a different shape, the star. I'm going to change a different size. I want it to be very visible. Okay, I'm going to click on OK. OK, done. And there you have the symbol of Texas state maps is very different. Okay, all right. And then let's save it again. We already saved it as a in your content, but now this is what we've saved. Does that make any, is that clear? I know it's very fast, but for now it's good. Okay. Now, let's say go back to your home page. So we're done with our JSON Line for now. We changed the symbology, we created a web map, we changed the pop-ups, okay? Now let's go back to home, go back to your home. We're gonna try now to create a web app. This time we're gonna do a story map. So right there, I don't know if you can see that close to your name, you have all these dots, 9 dots. Click on that. These are all the apps that we have available. Scroll down and find, hold on, I'm supposed to, story maps. Okay. Now, this is story maps. Like I said, it's a web app. Okay, it gives you access to. It's a way for you to create stories by using multimedia. It combines interactive maps and scenes and all of that. You'll use it to tell powerful stories. Okay. Again, when you click on story maps, yours might be different from what I have right here. Go ahead and click on new story. And we're going to do, these are different types of maps you can create. We're going to talk about them later on, but for now we're going to start from scratch. Okay, we're going to launch the story builder. But the story builder is what allows us, it's what we use to create maps. Okay, so Again, I think I said it earlier, you would have had to write your story, or you can do it on the fly, put together all the information that you want to use, the multimedia, the images, the pictures, the videos, whatever you want to do, okay? Here, I'm going to go ahead and add a cover. Let me title my story. I'm going to title my story, what's my vacation? Okay. Subtitle, good times in the Caribbean. I think that spelling is right. Then you want to add, okay. Then you want to add a cover image or video. This is a very, very simple tool to use. Click on add image or cover, image or video. Then if you already have an image or video, you can just drag and drop it here if you want, or you can browse your files. I'm going to go ahead and let's see. I'm just going to add something, say India, Shangri-La. Let's see, hold on, let me find my, I had some, I'm just going to add, open, browse your, oops. Okay. I'm going to add. Okay. This is not the Caribbean. I can't find my image right now, but I'm just gonna, this is what you use as like your front cover, the main cover of your story. And there you have your name. And this block palette is what you use to add narrative to your story, okay? And if you click on that, this is divided into like different types of buttons. This is what you use to add text. Okay, you can use it to add a button. Okay, then you have the multimedia options right here. Can you see my screen? I want to make sure I'm not just talking to myself. Let me see.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, good. And then the bottom part is like the immersive blocks where you use to change the type of story you tell in the format of the story. Okay. So if you go in and click on text right there, okay, you can start writing your story, okay. If you click on paragraph, click on heading, I'm gonna go in and copy and paste some information that I already had, or you can just type, okay, let's see, traveling to Bahamas, okay. That's your heading for the new paragraph, and then you just keep typing. The first, the trip to the airport was a problem. Okay. Then you just keep on typing, and then when you want to add a more, you click on the content block again. If you want to add a map, you can click on map, okay? You can go into our JSON Line and bring in a map that you have created that you think aligns well with the story, okay? I'm just gonna go in and find something, because for the exercise later on, you're gonna go in and use the map that we had just created, okay? But I'm just gonna go in, you can go in, you can find a map or whatever. I'm gonna go in and find some maps that I had earlier. Let's see if I can find it. Just any map. And add it to, okay. You can go into our JSON Line and find a map that you had created and add it to your story, okay? Right here, let me scroll down, okay. So this map is a response, you can zoom in and zoom out, okay? You can, hold on. Oops. Then you click on add to map. Okay, you can put a caption here if you want to. Map of whatever. Okay, and then you go back and find the plus sign and keep adding. If you want a new paragraph, you click on text again. Okay, you click on paragraph, click on heading, do arrival in the Bahamas. Okay, then you keep typing. Okay, this time then, let's say now you want to add something called an express map. Okay, if you scroll to the top, click on the plus sign, click on map. Click on map. And at the top of your screen, there should be a link that says, a button that says new express map. What express maps do? They create custom maps without you leaving the story builder. But the map that you create in here only stays in the map, okay? You cannot export the data or anything. So let's say you wanna, I wanna just talk about my trip from Dallas to the Bahamas, okay? You can, let's see, let me go to Texas, type Texas. You can search for place, or let me just do the Bahamas. Okay. Right here, you choose the Bahamas. There's a point that's already dropped on the map itself. So let's say I want to just show the route that my flight took from Texas to the Bahamas. Okay. I'm going to zoom in. You can move the map around. Okay. So I'm going to click on Dallas. I'm going to go, if you go to the top, these are the different options of things you can add to the map. I'm going to add a point from Dallas right here. Okay. Then I want to show the route, the flight I took from Dallas to the Bahamas. Then you can add, let's say, add an arrow, draw an arrow from, oops, to there. Okay. You can add annotation. Flight routes, for example, okay. And then, let's see, this one, let's see. You can add an image if you want. If you had an image of, let's say, DFW Airport, for example, or Love Field, you can add an image, okay? And then you can name it. Okay, then I'm gonna click on Add to Map. There you have your express map right there. Okay, you can add a caption again if you want. And then that's just how you do. You click on the block palette, go in if you want to add another image, or you want to add a video, for example. Let's try to add a video. You could browse your files, or you can go on the web. Let's say I'm going to go out and go to YouTube and find a video from the Bahamas. Let me see. Okay. Then you click on, can you see can you see my new share? Can you see the YouTube video?
Yes.
Okay. Then for you to share it, click on share. Then you either click on the embed code, click on embed to embed the video, or you click on the link right there. I'm going to click on the embed. I'm going to copy this. Copy. And I'm going to go back into my, I'm going to upload this. I've embedded the video into my map. This is a video of the Bahamas. So you can do lots of different things, okay? And then, let me see, I've had a couple of paragraphs. Then you want to go back to the next paragraph, right? My last day, oh, going back home, going back. Oops, back. But this one time I want to make it into another paragraph. It's a heading, okay? And then you continue with your story, okay? When you're done, whilst you're doing this, you can preview your story map. Click on preview to see what it's going to look like. This is not going to look very good because it was quickly put together. Okay. It shows you what your story is going to look like. Okay. And then if you're satisfied with it, fine. If you're not satisfied with it, you want to go back and continue editing it. Let me see. Okay. Once you're satisfied with what you have, before you publish, you can go into design, okay, and do a couple of things. You can change the way your cover looks. Right now, this is what it looks like. There are different options. Let's say I want to change this. Okay. I've changed what my cover slide looks like. Okay. And then you can enable navigation. And what this does is that rather than you scrolling through the whole story, it allows you to go from paragraph to paragraph. And I'll show you that when we're done. Then you can enable credits where you want to maybe give credits to the people you got the videos from, or the places you got the pictures from, etc. And then you can change the theme to whatever theme you like. Okay. And then let me see. You can add a logo. If you were doing this for your school, you have a school logo, you can add the school logo there. Okay. And then when you're done, you get out of it. Okay. Then if you look at your story, did I save it? Okay. If you look at your story, at the top right here you have the different paragraphs that you enabled. When we enabled navigation, this is what it did for you. If you didn't have this, all you would have had to do would be to go through the whole thing and scroll right through, okay? Another thing you could do is you can change, if you don't want to use this, this style. Let me go back. You could change, you could go back to the, so the different formats and do a slideshow instead. So what the slideshow does is it changes the way your story looks. Let me, hold on. It changes the way your story looks. It highlights, I can't, hold on. Okay, then you can add the slide title if you want, okay? And then you add different slides to your story, and then it scrolls through. Launch time, I'm just typing stuff up, launch time. Okay, and then you can create another, you'd have the media, the image, you can add an image. I'm gonna add another image. Let's do browser files. I'm gonna do something else. Okay, add. Okay, so here you have the image taking the major part of your story, and then you have different slides that you can use to scroll through. When you want to add another slide, you click on new slide, comes up, give it another title. Okay. Okay. Then you keep going. Okay, but this is a simple way to create a story map. When you have time, go through and choose different formats and see what it's gonna look like. Okay, and you continue story, and you keep going. When you're done, when you're ready to publish, you click on publish. Okay, and then you can set how you want to share the sharing level. you want to keep it private? Most of the maps the story maps that I create, when I'm trying out these things, I keep it private. Or you can share to your organization, okay? Or you can share it to everyone, make it public. So this time, or if you want to, if you have a group like we had the group, like Michael created the group yesterday, you could share it to the group itself, and then you publish your story. I'm just going to share this with everyone for now, okay? Then I'm going to click on publish story. It's checking for issues, okay? Okay, it's noticed something, and I'm just going to say, yes, share these items. Wants to know if it's going to, if I want the system to share everything with everyone. I'm just going to say, yes, share these items. Publishing my story. Okay, it says you published your story, it worked. And then you can use that. Then what you want to do then, copy the, let me move this around, I have stuff in my way. You can upload this story. You can share it on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. You can copy the link and send to other people, okay, via email, or you can embed it on your website if you want. And then if you want to continue editing your story, you can continue editing it. With apps, whatever issues, whatever corrections or whatever edits you make on the story itself or on the map changes in the app itself. Okay, I know I have like just a few minutes to go. Let me stop sharing for a minute. I know that was a very, very quick run through. Let me see. Yes, that was a very, very quick run through. Okay, do you have questions?
That was awesome. I don't have the option to share. I just have the star for add to favorites and then the 3 dots. So I don't know if that's something with my institution.
You
But
can't just copy the link?
I have no option to get a link. I can edit it. I can turn autoplay on. I can do a print preview. I can report abuse, or I can add it to favorites.
Okay.
So I just don't have the box
Okay.
with the arrow as one of my options. My question is just kind of like, this is really awesome and fun, but how have folks used this in the past, or what kind of projects would you use this for?
Like we had, okay, we had a group, we had a research team that was working with some high school students, and they needed to do a presentation for people at City Hall. So they used the story map to put their points across. They created maps and brought it in, and then created the story map as a presentation tool. That's what they were going to use to do the presentation to the city councilors. And people use it for different things as well. And I know in Michael's LibGuides, you have lots of examples of students using them. Maybe you can speak to that.
Yes, Alexa, I think that's a great question. I'm actually pulling up slides right now that I'll share in the chat so you can see some examples of how story maps have been used at UT. But we've had some really nice ones created that I'll show here in a second. And
Michael, I added the Relaciones Geográficas one in the chat.
Yeah, that was the first one I was looking for. So that's, I think, a nice example of how it can be used to highlight a particular library's collection or set of resources in a library's collection. And there are other ones as well. I'll see if I can find some more links, but yeah, I think that, you know, it can be a really great tool for telling a story about a particular data set or a project. Over the last year or so, especially since we started our single sign-on method of authentication at UT, we've seen use of story maps go up pretty dramatically. And I've had a lot more questions this past year about student projects where students will be contacting me and they're using story maps to present their work in class. Yeah, I think it's something that's just going to become more popular as a tool for communication and making some really interesting presentations.
Yeah, can I say something about the activity? Okay, it's in the folder under curriculum materials. What I have done to make it very easy, I just created like a mock story. I have text there, I have some images, I have a video and whatever. And then I have a link to the map that we created this morning. So I would like you, when you have time, or if you have time before we come back, to go in and look through. Let me see if I can find the exercise. Okay, hold on. Let me see. Did I stop? I think I stopped sharing. No? Let me do a new share for 1 minute. Michael, before you come back, okay? Let's see. Okay, if you go back to the folder, let's see, day 2, okay, there is a link for, let me see, what is day 2 activity. Introduction to JSON Line. You don't need to do the first one because that's one, or you can do it again. That was what we were doing earlier. But then the story maps, this is what you want to do, okay? And there's a folder in there as well that has, it says materials for, materials for story map. Okay, so I just found images online with images of campsites and stuff or whatever. You can use them if you don't want to think about where to go find your images. And then I have the little narrative here, okay, that you can just copy and paste the narrative into your story map. And then I have where you can put in the images, map of, it's in bold, put the map of Texas state parks, okay, etc. Put the express map there, etc., etc. That's what, you can do that, or you can create your own story map if you want to. Okay, thank you, that's all I got. And sorry, I know, I was gonna try to be between 45 minutes and an hour. Thank you. All right, Michael, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Libby. That was great. How's everybody feeling? Do we want to do the same thing as yesterday and take a quick break before I'll start my shorter segment that will hopefully wrap up at 10:30 this time? So great, sounds good. So let's take a few minute break and we'll see everybody back here in maybe 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Good. All right. Slides here that I'm going to run through really quickly, and just to introduce the material that I'll be covering during the demonstration to get us set up for our activity, which will be pretty short today, at least for my activity that will go along with the content I'll be covering here in the next 25 minutes or so. All right, so let me share my screen. And then share this presentation. So this presentation is also available in our Day 2 curriculum folder if you'd like to revisit it at any point. And so there's 2 things that I'm going to be talking about today that are kind of maybe more advanced ArcGIS Online topics or ones that are more maybe not things that your university will be doing right away, or that the library at your institution might be involved in right away, but things that I will say here at UT, after seeing our use of ArcGIS Online really start to expand significantly after the adoption of single sign-on authentication. These things have have started to come up more and more. And just thought it might be useful for us to cover these today, because I think these are going to be things that we need to think about more and more each year as we see more users, as we see more content being created within our ArcGIS Online organizational accounts. And we need to manage all of that and think about how we can scalably and sustainably preserve information that should be kept in the system, while also clearing things out that maybe don't need to be there, and also helping users that are trying to use ArcGIS Online as efficiently and effectively as possible. So to that end, I'll be covering two topics this morning: content preservation within ArcGIS Online, and Python integration, which I think will be a nice segue to the main body of our sprint discussion tomorrow, which Josh will be leading, talking about Python and Colab. All right, so first off, I want to start by talking about content preservation, and talking about why this is something for us to be considering as we as folks in the library start to talk about ArcGIS Online. Basically, there are limits that affect all of our institutional accounts. These limits tend to be pretty generous. I would say, looking at how many potential users we could create in the system, how many service credits were being allocated. I don't know that this is the same situation for all universities necessarily, and I'm not quite sure how many credits are being assigned to your institutions, how many users you're allowed to create your universities. But I will say that there are limits, right? It's not unlimited as of yet. We'll see if that eventually changes. But I know for UT, like I said, it's very generous. I think we can create up to 50,000 users. And that seems like a lot, but eventually, especially as our use of ArcGIS Online continues to grow, and we have new students enrolling each year, and older students leaving as they graduate, and faculty members retire, and staff move on to other positions, those old accounts start to build up in the system. And so we have this accumulation. We also have an accumulation of content as these old accounts just sit there inactive. And all of that content is consuming service credits. So not only are we using up some of the accounts, out of our 50,000, we're also burning service credits each month, storing content that may or may not be worth preserving. And so that eventually is going to put a strain on our use of ArcGIS Online, especially if we start to get close to those limits. So while we could just start going through and deleting old accounts, ones that somebody hasn't logged into within 5 years or something like that, might be one way that we try to identify old accounts that are not worth keeping around. Those accounts might actually contain data or information or maps that are worth preserving. They might be unique. They might be connected to original research that was being done on campus. And so we need to exercise caution before we actually start to remove material from our ArcGIS Online accounts. So how do we do that effectively? And that's what this will be addressing here. And I know specifically I'll be talking about the role that we might be able to play within the library at our respective institutions to help make sure that ArcGIS Online is being managed in a way that really benefits the university, that we're preserving important content, but not wasting resources, keeping old content that is maybe not as important or significant. For instance, a lot of intro to GIS classes are going to be resulting in the creation of maps and data sets that are just being used for exercises, lab activities, kind of like what we're doing as part of the sprint, right? These aren't real things that should be preserved forever. We're just learning, and that's going to be really common. And so how do we filter those things out and say, all right, it's okay to delete these after a certain number of years. These students have graduated. We can get rid of their old class exercises and the things they created for them. But we want to keep, original research and data that might have been created during a student's, time at our university. And that's, I think, something that we in the libraries can do something about. So, what specifically might we be able to do? Well, I think one thing we can help with is awareness and getting the word out that, these are the things that users of ArcGIS Online within the university setting, folks who are using an ArcGIS Online account that is tied to our institutional account should be aware of certain things. They should be aware that they will lose access to their accounts once they graduate, retire, move on to a different position elsewhere. And so one of the things we've done at UT is create LibGuides that help explain some of the important considerations users should make when they really start to invest their time into creating resources within the ArcGIS Online environment. We want to make sure that they're aware, your access to these materials will end at some point once you move on. And we want to think about sustainability. So how can we create a system that allows us to preserve things that is not excessively onerous, right? We're not going to be able to go through every single account, look through every item and determine, is this original, something that's significant, original, or is this just another class exercise that, there's 50 of somewhere in the system, and there's a bunch of identical versions of this out there that a bunch of students have created. So, how can we sustainably filter through these things that are being created in our system? And how can we organize things that are significant and get those filtered out and preserve them in a way that they're still easy to utilize and find. So we need a system that is not just going to preserve things, but preserve them in a way that they're actually going to still be accessible and usable. And in what responsibilities do we have as librarians, as data coordinators, or whatever our respective roles are, to help our university with this challenge? And I think that there's a role for us to play in preserving knowledge and preserving the products of research. And knowledge and the products of research are being saved in ArcGIS Online accounts. And so one of the things I think that we could really do, beyond just creating awareness of what happens to content in ArcGIS Online accounts as users eventually move on and no longer have their affiliation with the university, is giving them a plan for how to respond and deal with that. And maybe they're okay. Maybe, once they graduate, all of the things they've created are just class exercises or temporary things that they don't think are worth preserving. But if they're going to graduate, or a faculty member is going to retire, and there's something that they really want to make sure is preserved long-term, they think it's significant, they want it to be available to others at the university or publicly, giving them a series of steps that they can go through to make sure that happens. Is something that I think we can help with. And so as an example here, I'm sharing the link to a guide that I recently developed that describes how users here at our university can basically plan ahead to make sure that their content isn't lost. And so what it recommends is that these users go through their accounts themselves and they identify what is worth preserving. And then they contact our generic GIS email address for the library, which goes to me. And that email will, in here in the guide, it instructs them to specify what resources they are interested in preserving. It asks them to identify their account name so that I can go in and see, all right, this is the user that contacted me. Here are the items that they think should be preserved. And it asks them to complete the required metadata fields for these items so that we have descriptive information. We know what this data set is and why it's significant. And then what I can do with at that point is move their content actually from their account to a permanent account that is not tied to a specific user. So I created a new account within ArcGIS Online that is specifically and only used for data preservation purposes. And that way, we don't have to worry about that content ever going away again. It's still searchable within the system. It's findable because we have that descriptive metadata. That student account, that content is actually moved out of it. So once their account is eventually deactivated and deleted, no important content will be lost. And this is the system we've come up with. This was based on an example I had seen at Northeastern, where they had provided similar guidance, and it seemed like a really good system for us to adopt as well. And I will say that, you know, we're in a somewhat unique situation, having these administrative capabilities for ArcGIS Online. But even if you don't have that, right, this is something that I still checked in with our other ArcGIS Online administrators within the College of Liberal Arts Information Technology Services Department to make sure they didn't foresee any issues. So it still required collaboration. And even if you're in a situation where maybe you don't yet have those administrative privileges, perhaps this is still something where you could play a role in, you know, helping them prepare a guide or start to think through this process that would allow content to be preserved. So that's all I had about content preservation. Are there any questions there?
Michael, I just have one quick question. I'm curious to know how many have you been contacted in this context? How many questions like about this have you received?
Well, it's interesting. Like I mentioned, our use of ArcGIS Online has significantly expanded in the year and a half since we adopted single sign-on authentication. And this semester was the first time I had received questions about this. And I think I ended up receiving questions from, I don't know, maybe 3 different research groups asking about how content should or could be preserved. In one case, it was a faculty member that's looking to retire soon, and they were really concerned about all of the work that they have been involved in that was kind of being managed in multiple student accounts of students they were supervising, making sure that that work was going to be preserved long-term. In another case, it was a student project where a group of students were producing work under the guidance of a faculty member for a class project, and they wanted to make sure that that was preserved. So that involved coordination with both the students and the faculty member. And I have a feeling that this is something where there will be an increasing number of questions about this each semester. And so now I have a guide that I can just point them to rather than having to respond on the fly and type up a detailed response each time. I can just say, hey, we've already established best practices for this, and refer to this guide. If you have any questions, let me know. But creating these guides is a great way to head off those questions and to be able to respond to them in a scalable way, where I could get 100 of those questions next semester and can just refer everybody to this new guide that's been developed. And it's not too much work for me. Well, it might be once I get these emails from them saying, all right, everything's ready, can you preserve it for me? But actually that process is pretty quick. Once you have those administrative privileges, you just go into the account that they've specified, you click a few check boxes for each item that they have designated as worthy of preservation, and then you just move it to the preservation account. I mean, it really only takes a few minutes, so it's pretty nice.
How often do you go in to clean out all the content you have, like from regular students?
That's a great question. So I'll say we haven't ever done it. Really prior to this last year and a half, our use of ArcGIS Online was actually pretty minimal, just because the process of getting set up with an account was pretty complicated. You had to specifically contact somebody in the Liberal Arts Information Technology Services Department to request that an account be created. And there wasn't a lot of faculty use yet. It wasn't really being widely utilized in classes. And now it's just so easy to create an account. It's the same procedure you use to sign in. Once your account is already set up, you just it will create itself as soon as you log in. That we've seen more and more users, and so now I think we have about 1,500 active accounts, and those old ones just sit there because those early users, in the first couple of years we were using ArcGIS Online, they weren't generating all that much content. There was really probably only a few hundred of them that are inactive at this stage. But over the next couple of years, since we have a much larger user base now, we'll eventually have 1,000 inactive accounts and several thousand inactive accounts as these students graduate. And at some point, we will need to go through and clean this up. And so one of the things that I have started to explore, this kind of ties into the next thing we'll be covering, is how we can apply an automated approach to deactivating and eventually deleting old student accounts. So basically, you know, the procedure that I have a draft version of involves creating a Python script that will connect to ArcGIS Online, look through all of the users connected to our institution, identify the ones that have not logged in a specific number of years. And if they haven't logged in 5 years, we can say, all right, this account should get automatically deleted. It's not in use. And so that hasn't been applied yet, and we might not apply it for several years, but I think that it will eventually need to be some automated approach, just because we'll be dealing with thousands of accounts. And I don't think it will be sustainable for us to manually go through and try to identify which accounts are worthy of keeping active or deactivating and deleting.
Doesn't Esri already have some kind of way for us to go in and do that? I kind of think I remember that question being asked some time ago, and the response was, yeah, they have a workflow for doing that, but I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do have workflows. It's just, how much customization do you want for your university? And I think everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different. I mean, even here, I wouldn't have complete say over that process. That would involve multiple stakeholders that we would want to make sure, everybody that is, utilizing ArcGIS Online or managing and administering ArcGIS Online kind of signs off on that before anything gets deleted or removed from the system. And having the ability to customize that. So for instance, in this script that I've developed, you can adjust it. So you can say, all right, anything or any account that hasn't been logged into within 3 years, let's deactivate it. And after an account has been deactivated for a period of several years and nobody's contacted you about it, saying, hey, I'm still a faculty member and I'm getting back into things, I want to use ArcGIS Online again. All right, it's been 5 years. Since anybody's logged in, it's been 2 years since it's been deactivated. We can go ahead and delete it. But maybe we want to adjust that timeline. We get feedback from stakeholders. They don't feel comfortable with a 5-year timeline. They want a 7-year timeline. We can adjust that as needed. So yeah, once you have the ability to write Python scripts to manage your items and manage your users, it's really customizable, and you have complete control over how often processes run and exactly how they operate. But to your point, I think that there are some automated or workflows that Esri has developed to facilitate that as well. I will also say that a lot of the things that Esri develops for managing users are geared towards organizations that are not dealing with thousands and thousands of users that are rotating in and out as frequently as we'll see student users rotating in and out as they enroll and then eventually graduate. So universities are kind of in a unique position. We're not like a company where you're going to hire somebody and they'll probably be around for 10 years before they eventually leave, and you only have 100 employees using ArcGIS Online. It puts us in a unique position. Any other questions? All right, so I think we can go ahead and move on here to Python and ArcGIS Online. And so this is what the activity I've developed for today will focus on. Really quickly, and I'm sure Josh will probably cover this a little bit tomorrow as well. I just wanted to make sure everybody has some familiarity with Python, since that's what we'll be talking about here for the next few minutes. Python is an open source interpreted programming language. It's cross-platform, so whether you have a Mac or a PC or even a Linux computer, you can utilize Python, which is really nice. The current version is 3.9.5. The versions here are actually kind of important because if you are an ArcGIS desktop user, you've used ArcMap before, or if you've used ArcGIS Pro before, it's important to know that they use 2 different versions of Python. So the older ArcMap software uses Python 2.7, and the newer ArcGIS Pro software uses Python 3. And so there are some significant differences between Python 2.7 and Python 3. that you will need to consider if you're trying to make use of both. For anybody that's just getting into Python for doing anything related to ArcGIS Online or really ArcGIS in general, I would definitely encourage you writing all of your code for Python 3 since Python 2.7 is being phased out. Python is widely used not just in GIS work, but in a variety of different fields, just because it's so adaptable and fairly easy to get started with, at least in terms of scripting languages. There's an incredibly large ecosystem of open source packages, one of which we'll be talking about today, which is the ArcGIS package that you'll use to connect to ArcGIS Online. And it can be used for all kinds of different things: file management or processing, analyzing data, editing data, visualizing data, creating charts and graphs, and just about every kind of digital workflow you can imagine. There's probably a way you can use Python to automate it. So it's a really nice tool. And the reason why I'm going to spend just a little bit of time talking about it today is because there's really three things that we get out of using Python to manage content or users in ArcGIS Online, and that is scalability. So once you create a script, you can run it every day, you can run it every hour, you can use it to process 10 items, you can use it to process 1,000 items or 10,000 items in ArcGIS Online. These scripts can be really, really scalable in a way that manually doing things is not. So if you had to go in and and you said, all right, for every user account that's over 2 years old that hasn't been logged into, I want to copy all that content into a new user account that is specifically set up for data preservation, and I want to run that every semester to check and update that data preservation folder. You could write a Python script to do that, and it might take a half an hour to run, but it would be no extra work on your part. You would just click a button after you've written the script. But if you had to do that manually, it would take hours and hours and hours of work. So scalability is a huge advantage if we're using Python instead of doing things manually. Things are reproducible, so we could share that code with somebody else in our organization. They can do the exact same thing that we just did. We can make sure that the processes we're doing are the same from semester to semester or month to month, if we're doing something fairly regularly. And we can also automate things. So we can use Windows Task Scheduler if we're working on a Windows PC to automatically have scripts run every month. So I can, every month produce a report of which users have logged in, which accounts are inactive, and have it send me an email to update me on how ArcGIS Online is being utilized or how our service credits are being utilized, and it can let me know if there's any issues with our accounts. So these are some really big advantages, and it's worth at least having some background into how we might be able to get started with Python. So today I'm not going to be talking about the specifics of Python at all. Actually, I'll save that for Josh tomorrow to get a little more into that. But really, what I'll just be talking about is how you can connect a Python script to your ArcGIS Online account. So we'll be talking about like 3 lines of code or 4 lines of code, and that is about it. Because really the main thing here is the authentication, which can be a little bit tricky. So how do you tell your Python script you have the authority to access certain items in ArcGIS Online? How do you verify your identity for ArcGIS Online? So the simplest way to do this is actually to log into ArcGIS Online and write your Python code within the ArcGIS Online environment. So this is functionality that's pretty new. It's only been available for the last couple of years. The really important thing to know, and this will be important for our exercise or our activity today, is that you need privileges for your user role to be able to create these Python notebooks within ArcGIS Online. So I have a feeling that we will find some members of our sprint group today will have the ability to create notebooks in ArcGIS Online, and some of us probably will not. And that's because when this new functionality was released a couple of years ago, by default, users were not allowed to create these Python notebooks. So it's something that your administrators would have had to have enabled for users in your role. And so that's something that I did recently for our UT users after receiving a request from a student. And so if you do have this ability to create notebooks, and in your top interface bar at the very top where you see map and gallery and content, you should see a notebook option if it's available to you. What you do is click on that notebook option, and then it would take you to basically the screen we see represented in this lower left screenshot, which will probably show you that you haven't created notebooks before, unless it's something you already are familiar with. And so what you would do at that point is click the new notebook button and say you want to create a new Python notebook. And there's several different tiers of notebook you can create based on how much processing power you need. For a basic operation, just checking on how many users are in your organization, or how managing content in your account, you don't need anything fancy to do that. You can just select the standard option at the top, which we see in the middle screenshot. And then this will take you to a brand new notebook, which looks like the screenshot here in the bottom right. And there's already a few lines of code available there for you, which is nice. And so the first 2 lines of code, which if you look closely, we'll see it says from arcgis.arcgis import GIS, and then it says GIS equals GIS home. What those lines of code are doing, it's importing the ArcGIS module that you need to establish a connection. So that module is basically just Python code that Esri developers have already written to facilitate this whole process. So you're bringing in this library of code that's already written for you. The second line that says GIS equals capital GIS home, that is referencing the GIS function in the module you just imported. And it's saying, all right, you want to establish a connection to your ArcGIS Online home. Since you are already logged in to ArcGIS Online when you're doing all of this, it basically just says, all right, we're connecting to the account you're already logged into. That's what the significance of the word home there is. It's saying, all right, we're connecting to this account I'm already signed into. And then if we look just below that, where it says print gis.users.me, that line of code is instructing the notebook to return your username. So if you are not logged in, and you tried to run this code, it would give you an error message. You'll see that it does not give me an error. Instead, it says username mshinsky_example user. That's who I was logged in as when I ran this code that we see in that screenshot there. And so that's basically just confirming that the connection you established in previously in the original 2 lines of code, that connection was successful. It was able to verify your identity. At that point, I could then write additional lines of code that say print or tell me the name of each item in my account, or take that item and share it publicly, or delete any item that was last created more than a year ago. And we could automate all of that. So this is really the easiest way to authenticate yourself, is basically by logging in and writing your code within ArcGIS Online. But this might not be available to you. If you want this functionality, you should be able to request it from your administrator. I don't know that they would give you the privilege, but really there's not much of a reason to deny that request, considering it's not much of a security issue. It's just new functionality that Esri has not enabled access to by default. Are there any questions about this first method of using Python within ArcGIS Online? All right, see a thumbs
This is
up.
really great. Do you have I copied what you did, and I ran that first cell. Of course, no one at Baylor had ever created a notebook, so it was totally empty. And I really liked that it gave me a warning instantly saying, be careful, you're logged in as an administrator account, which I immediately shut it down. So I didn't click anything stupid, right?
Well, it's interesting, Josh, that I saw that message too, because I initially ran this as my administrator account when I was first testing it out. And I was like, oh, wow, I had the same reaction you did. And so that screenshot that I took there in the bottom right, I actually cleared out the response after I ran the first cell, because it gave me the same warning even when I was logged in as a non-administrative user. So that user did have, I mean, it was a custom role that had like a few administrative privileges turned on, but it was not like the full administrator, and it still gave me that warning. So just wanted to mention that even regular users, or ones that even have just slightly elevated permissions or privileges, might still see that warning message.
Do you have any I'm looking at there's the standard, like it says, I'm looking at that middle image in your slide. For the administrative tasks, some light analytics, but then there's the advanced and the advanced with GPU support for credits per hour. I know at Baylor, we don't have Jupyter Notebook support on our high performance computing. And there's a need for it. So it's in our, right, a 3 to 5 year plan to include that. I would fear here that if we open this up too much, that folks may use it, but not for GIS, just for the processing power of letting something run. Do you have that happen at UT at all? Is that a concern?
That's an excellent question, Josh. And you know what? That has never even occurred to me. I would guess that the folks that are doing that really intensive computing, they're probably not, our primary ArcGIS Online users right now. And I'd say that they might not have discovered that. Because I would say, I mean, really, there's only been one person that I know of on our campus that has even ever created a notebook. So even among our core ArcGIS Online users, I'm not even sure they've explored the notebook functionality. But I could see once the word gets out that maybe that could be an issue. The nice thing is that we still have the ability to determine those credit allocations for each individual account. If we say everybody gets 1,000 credits, and at UT we have a few million. If somebody burns through those really quickly, thinking that they found a nice shortcut to do their, Python related work that is, pretty intensive and requires a lot of computational resources, they're going to hit that cap and that's going to cut them off. And then they're going to need to contact us to ask for more. So yeah, fortunately, I think you have, just using that credit allocation, that might be a way to make sure that doesn't happen without you being aware, and you come in one day and all of your university's credits are gone. So
I have one more small question. I don't want to, I'm taking up too much, but when I first started with GIS years ago, I was using Avenue. Then with desktop, I was using the Python 2, even after 3 came out. I haven't yet, right? I'm just now starting to get into Pro and online. How do these notebooks fit in? So if someone wanted to automate a GIS process, a researcher, would you advise them to use Pro and Python on their local system? At what point would you recommend use these online notebooks?
Excellent question. I would say if you are only doing things specific to ArcGIS Online, you're really focused on geospatial data specifically, and share and you don't have a need to share those notebooks outside of the ArcGIS Online environment, you don't want to publish them to GitHub or something like that, then maybe this is an okay solution for you. So I mean, it is really easy to set up, and like I said here, this is the first option I'm presenting because it's the easiest way to really access your ArcGIS Online items and everything, and authenticate yourself because you're already logged in. But it may not be the best solution in all circumstances. And I'll say for myself, I'm almost always using code that's in an external standalone script, just because it's easier to share things in GitHub, collaborate with others on it. You can do things that are not geospatial. You can very easily work outside of the ArcGIS Online environment, but you can still connect when you need to. So this really facilitates doing things within the ArcGIS Online environment, but it's not maybe the best solution for more complex projects.
I have a simpler question.
Mm-hmm.
When you deactivate accounts, are you still paying credits for them?
So deactivated accounts, if they have content in them, they would still be consuming credits if that content is still stored in Esri's cloud. But accounts that are deleted, that content is gone, and so would no longer be consuming credits. And then, as I had mentioned yesterday, the 2 ways that credits are consumed is through analysis, right? Use of processing power that Esri is providing, or through storage, use of the storage space they're providing. And so if an account's inactive, they're not doing any analysis, it's really just consuming credits from the storage side. So if you have, you could have 1,000 old accounts, but if they've only ever uploaded a single shapefile, which takes up no space at all really, then those accounts aren't consuming credits. They're not a very significant burden on the system. The biggest issue there would be, if you have a limited number of accounts you can have in total for your organization, those accounts are just sitting there using up those available number of accounts. And it also just, makes your organization larger, more complicated. There's more users to search through. There's more content to search through when you're trying to find things. Any other questions before we move on to the next Python authentication method for our JSON line? All right, and I realize we're already past 10:30, so I'll try to cover these pretty quickly. The next option here is that you could manage your ArcGIS Online resources through the ArcGIS Pro Python console. So this method requires that you have ArcGIS Pro installed on your system. And if you recall yesterday, I mentioned that if you go into ArcGIS Online and you go to licensing, or you go to My Settings, then you go to licensing, you can actually download the latest version of ArcGIS Pro through there if you don't have it installed already. So what you would need to do after you open ArcGIS Pro for the first time is, you're going to be required to sign in to license the software, and you'll be using your ArcGIS Online credentials to do that. So that's how you are provided a license to ArcGIS Pro, is logging into your ArcGIS Online account. So the nice thing is whenever you're using Pro, you're also already logged into your account, which means that it's pretty easy to verify your identity and access your ArcGIS Online resources. I will mention that your institution can technically also set it up so that you do not have to, by default, log into your ArcGIS Online account. If you're using concurrent licensing, like you open ArcGIS Pro and it connects to a license server on your campus, but I'd say that's probably not the most common licensing method. How many of you have used ArcGIS Pro? Anybody here? Yeah, see a few hands being raised there. Do you log in to use ArcGIS Pro? Do you log in to your ArcGIS Online account when you start it? Or do you notice that you were logged in when you use it? If you look up in the top right, does it have your username?
No.
Mhm.
So that's good. So that's what I'm kind of assuming here, is that you are logging into your ArcGIS Online account. And even I will say that if you were at a university where that was not required, it doesn't prevent you from logging in. So everybody should have the ability within ArcGIS Pro to log in and verify, their ArcGIS Online identity by logging in through Pro. Once you are logged in, what you can do is click on View in the top toolbar and then click on the Python window button, and that will open a Python console at the very bottom of your ArcGIS Pro application window. And in there, what we would do is basically type in those same lines of code we just saw in the previous example within the ArcGIS Online notebook. So you would type in GIS equals GIS home. You'll notice there is no import statement that is required here, and that's because when you're working within ArcGIS Pro, all of those modules are already available to you. So you can just type in GIS equals GIS home, as we see it written there. The second GIS does have to be capitalized, GIS open parentheses, home in quotation mark, close parentheses. And then if we write the same second line of code, print gis.users.me, we see the same response. It is returning my username, which verifies that it is successfully accessing my account. And then, like I said, the next thing I could write is, show me all of the items that I've created, and return all of the story map titles for the story maps in my account, or all of the feature layers, or whatever we want to do. We could then write the code to do that. In the last method that I referred to a little bit earlier is writing a standalone script. So this is definitely, far and away the most complex way to do this for a few reasons. It means you need to have a different application on your computer that you use to write and manage your code. I use an application called Atom, ATOM, that I'm a big fan of. So if you're interested in this and don't already have an application you'd like to write your code in, I'd say it's a good one to check out. But basically, you would install a separate application that is designed exclusively for managing coding projects, and you would write your code there. And you would then need to import the ArcGIS module, which means you need to have the ArcGIS Python package installed on your computer. And then you would need to go through different steps depending on whether you are using ArcGIS online authentication or you're using single sign-on authentication. So I think we found out yesterday a slight majority of us are using single sign-on authentication right at our institutions to log in. So while for the most part, that is a big advantage. It does tend to make most things easier. It actually makes this process a lot more complicated. So those of you that have accounts that are not tied to your university credentials are going to find this process a little bit easier. So basically, all that you have to do if you are using the ArcGIS Online authentication is if you look at the example in the bottom left here, you would need to import the ArcGIS module, which we do not see happening yet. I will mention that is necessary, and that is reflected here. Can you see my cursor where that's hovering?
Mm-hmm.
So right there where it says from arcgis.arcgis import GIS, that actually needs to happen here. And I can update that screenshot in this slide because that should be there, just so nobody gets confused. But once you've imported that module, you should be able to establish your connection by putting in the URL to your ArcGIS Online organizational accounts. You'll notice for us here at UT, it's ut-austin.maps.arcgis.com. So you would need to look up what that URL is for Baylor and Texas Tech and whatever university you're at. And then, is there a question?
Mm-mm.
Okay. And then you would need to just put in your username and password. So here I just have examples. Don't use those because that won't work. That would be your real username and your real password. And then you should be able to basically do the same thing that we did earlier and confirm that you are accessing your ArcGIS Online account successfully. So you would say, in this case, me equals gis.users.me. So that's a new object that's being created that represents your user account. And then you could type print me.created, and that would tell you the date when your account was actually created, or me.last login would show you the last time you logged into your account. And if it returns that information without producing an error, that would verify that yes, you are successfully accessing your resources. And then, like I mentioned, you could go on to write additional code that deletes all of your old content that's more than a year old, or creates new items if you want to do that, or whatever you're hoping to do with your account. All right, so the next step is that I'm going to describe is for those that are using single sign-on authentication. And basically what this process involves, it's much more complex. So you would need to go into ArcGIS Online, create an app, define it as a Python app. So you go like new item, create custom application, specify that it's a Python app. And then you would need to, once it is created, you can look up the information about that application. It will automatically be assigned a unique client ID. You'll need to copy that client ID. You will need to reference it in your code, which is what we see here in this bottom right screenshot where it says client ID, and then I just created a fake one, right? XYZ123. And then you would pass that client ID in when you try to authenticate yourself. So in this case, I said, GIS equals this GIS connection to our ArcGIS Online organization. Here's the unique client ID for the application I had created. What happens next is it doesn't automatically just log you in. It will open your browser and prompt you to enter in your university credentials. So it's going to prompt you to log in. It's an interactive process. So you have to put in your username and ID for your university, and then it will refresh that browser window and show you a unique verification code that you will have to copy and then put into an interactive Python prompt. Once you do that, it will run the rest of your code. So it's much more complicated, we're at 10:50, so we don't have time to get into all of the specifics today. We can talk about it for sure more this afternoon if anyone would like to see a walkthrough of that process. I will say it is definitely more complicated. I would encourage you to explore the first two options I mentioned here before getting into this. But if anybody has questions about this, I'd be glad to talk about it more this afternoon, or if you have questions later on after this sprint, feel free to contact me. And we do have a guide that I've developed for UT that actually explains in more detail how to create that client ID and or get the client ID by creating the app and everything. And so that is linked to in our suggested resources for our day 2 curriculum. So Are there any questions at all about anything I've covered today? All right. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your morning. I feel bad I've gone beyond the allotted time again. Try to do better tomorrow. I'll be the first speaker tomorrow, so I'll try to be quick. Yeah, I hope that was informative for everybody, and I hope that prepares you well for the activity, which will be pretty brief today, at least for the activity that I've developed, that we'll just ask you to try and explore either notebook, connecting to your ArcGIS Online account through a notebook or through ArcGIS Pro. And unfortunately, I'd say for some of you, you might not have either option available to you if you don't already have Pro installed, and if you don't have the notebook functionality available to you. So hopefully you'll have at least one option if you're interested in testing that out. But if there are any questions at any point, please feel free to follow up in Slack, and I'd be glad to respond. I'll be checking that all day. And yeah, if there aren't any other questions,
I would like to
Like
ask one
to
question.
Okay,
Oh.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Cynthia.
So I was just gonna ask, I don't have story maps in online. I don't have that privilege. I wonder, can you show me or just tell me what tab it would be in Pro? Or maybe you can't do story maps in Pro.
You asking? No, it's a web or it's online. I don't think you can do it in Pro.
Okay. All right, thank you.
What the codes that we're writing, if when we have the exercise, is it for us? What would they be doing to clean out your member accounts? What would the codes be doing?
The Python code for the activity. It's not going to do anything. So as I briefly mentioned earlier, it just because of time limits today, there's no way to really get into the specifics of what you can do with the Python code.
Okay.
I'll leave that to Josh tomorrow to cover that in a little more depth, how Python works and the basic syntax of Python. But really all the code snippets that I'm providing or doing is just connecting you to your ArcGIS Online account. So at that point, what you could do is then reference the ArcGIS Python API documentation to figure out what else you can do. So don't worry about running any of the code that I provided. It's not going to delete any content.
I hope I don't. Okay.
Yeah. So you're in the clear there. It's not going to do anything to your account. It's just going to basically connect to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, I hope everybody has a good time with the activities today. And like I said, I think we'll all be checking the Slack channel periodically throughout the afternoon. So if there are any questions, feel free to post them there. And yeah, looking forward to coming back together this afternoon at 4 and talking more about our experiences.
Okay.